No.
Aaron Drennan seems like an honest mistake, as you say. Ollie Clark, they could point the finger and say, we should have known that he wasn't, that he was still suspended.
It said on their portal, and they admitted liability for that. And they said we should have checked the handbook and we should have made a call. The whole portal thing was brought in so you don't have to check the handbook and you don't have to make the call.
Yeah.
So for them to actually say it was our fault, and which they did, they still then blamed us again.
Reasons I think the game is in trouble, and you cannot have a Bosman ruling that they've got in a moment. That is the be all, the end, the start of it and the end of it all. Because for me, Man United have helped Wayne Rooney's career massively on and off the field. The manager, the club itself has invested in him. They bought him for...
When everyone screams about their GOAT, when the arguments turn into shouting matches about money and celebrity and social media followers, you forget what football used to mean. But Ian Holloway names his top 7 favourite footballers with a simple phrase that cuts through all the noise. He's my GOAT. And his list is not what you expect. These are not 7 obvious superstars. Some are local heroes you have never heard of. Some are mentors who shaped a generation in Monday night coaching sessions. One is a tragic story of what could have been. This is about grit, composure, local pride, and people who did things the right way. This is the counter-story to modern football's hype machine. I am Ethan, and this is Football Icons. Holloway's idea of greatness is different. It is not about hype, it is about standards. It is about what lasts when the cameras leave. His 7 favourites are archetypes of the game he loves, mixing grit and grace, community and craft, joy and work ethic. They span decades, from childhood idols to teammates to players he managed under financial chaos. Each one taught him something essential about what football should be. When you hear their stories, you realise Holloway is not picking the best players he ever saw. He is picking the type of footballer he wishes the world still celebrated. In an era dominated by transfer fees that could fund small nations, by players who treat football as a stepping stone to brand deals and Instagram fame, by endless debates about who deserves the GOAT label based on social media metrics rather than actual substance, Holloway's list stands as a defiant reminder of what the game used to be, what it should still be. These 7 men represent structural pillars of an idealised athletic archetype, fusing technical elegance with local community identity and an adaptable resilience capable of thriving under severe financial constraints. They represent a philosophy that values character over celebrity, substance over style, and genuine footballing excellence over manufactured hype. The list moves backwards through time and experience. It starts with a global superstar and ends with a childhood hero. It includes tragedy and triumph, poverty and prosperity, local legends and international icons. But every single one of them earned their place through the same fundamental qualities: work ethic, standards, composure, heart. Let me tell you about them, starting from number 7 and working back to where it all began. If you love hearing stories like this, hit the hype button right now and give this video some love. It helps more than you know. Number 7. David Beckham. You might be shocked to see Beckham on this list. Holloway has spent years mocking celebrity culture in football with his trademark humour. He once dismissed rumours of a knighthood for Beckham by joking that he was just a good footballer with a famous bird. That line became legendary. It captured everything Holloway seems to hate about modern football: the endorsements, the fame, the fake image, the way celebrity status drowns out actual footballing ability. Holloway has built his reputation as a traditionalist, someone who values working-class grit over glossy magazine covers. So why is Beckham here? When Holloway talks about Beckham in professional managerial terms, his tone changes completely. The humour disappears. What emerges is deep, genuine respect. During his tenure at Queen's Park Rangers, Holloway experienced something that frustrated him more than anything else in football. He watched young players assume they had achieved success simply because they received high wages before proving themselves on the pitch. These lads had barely played 20 professional games, but they were earning thousands of pounds a week. They thought the money meant they were already successful. They stopped working. They stopped improving. They thought they had arrived. Holloway called this phenomenon the complacency cancer, and he watched it destroy promising careers again and again. Young players who could have been great settled for mediocrity because the financial rewards came too early. They lost their hunger, they lost their drive, they became comfortable, and comfortable players rarely achieve greatness. Beckham was the exact opposite. Holloway pointed to him as the ultimate example of intrinsic motivation, the internal drive that separates the good from the truly great. Beckham possessed the wealth to retire immediately and pursue modelling full-time. He could have walked away from football at any moment and lived in luxury for the rest of his life. His bank accounts did not need another season. His trophy cabinet did not need another medal. But he maintained an unquenchable desire to be the best player he could possibly be. That hunger never stopped. Even when he had everything money could buy, he still trained like he had nothing. Even when he had won every major trophy, he still approached every training session with the same intensity. Even when he was globally famous, he still focused on improving his game. That work ethic, that relentless pursuit of excellence, is what Holloway respects more than anything. This distinction is critical to understanding Holloway's philosophy. He remains highly critical of the external celebrity apparatus of modern football. He hates the way the game has become a vehicle for personal branding and commercial exploitation. But he holds immense respect for any individual who possesses the internal work ethic and dedication required to maximize their athletic potential. Beckham represents intrinsic motivation personified. He represents performance over celebrity status. He proves that you can exist within the modern celebrity machine without letting it corrupt your relationship with the game itself. For Holloway, that drive matters more than any brand deal or haircut ever could. Beckham earned his place on this list not because of celebrity status, but in spite of it. He earned it because beneath all the noise, beneath all the fame, he remained a footballer who refused to stop working. Number 6. Paul Furlong. To understand why Furlong means so much to Holloway, you need to understand the context. When Queen's Park Rangers collapsed into administration and suffered relegation to the third tier in 2002, the club was in complete ruin. They could barely afford to keep the lights on, let alone sign proven goal scorers. The administration process had stripped the club of its assets, its pride, and its hope. Players were leaving, fans were angry, the future looked bleak. Holloway, stepping into this chaos as manager, faced an impossible task. He needed to rebuild a football club with no money, no resources, and no obvious path forward. Enter Paul Furlong, a 34-year-old striker available on a free transfer. On paper, this looked like a desperate signing. Most managers would have seen an aging player past his peak, someone taking one last paycheck before retirement. The football world is littered with these stories. Veterans who hang on too long, collecting wages while contributing little, becoming symbols of decline rather than renewal. But Holloway saw something completely different when he looked at Furlong. He saw potential where others saw limitation. He saw value where others saw age. He saw a vintage Rolls-Royce. That metaphor became one of Holloway's most famous quotes, and it perfectly encapsulates his philosophy of player management. Furlong cost nothing to acquire, Holloway explained, but he was polished, looked after, and fine-tuned by the coaching staff so he could be driven every single day rather than saved for special occasions. Think about what that means. Most people who own a vintage Rolls-Royce keep it in the garage. They take it out for special events, for weddings, for show. They treat it as a museum piece, something too valuable to use regularly. But Holloway did the opposite. He treated Furlong as a working machine, maintained with care and respect, running at full capacity week after week. The key was the maintenance. Furlong was not just thrown onto the pitch and expected to perform. He was coached, he was managed, he was looked after. His training was monitored, his recovery was prioritized, his diet was controlled. Every aspect of his professional life was fine-tuned to maximize his remaining years. And the results proved Holloway spectacularly right. For Holloway, Furlong represents resourcefulness under constraint. He proves that operational stability can be achieved through cultural alignment and mutual respect, not just money. This is the type of footballer every struggling club needs. A seasoned professional who prioritizes performance over distractions, who understands his role, who delivers value every single day. Number 5. Nigel Martyn. The discovery of Nigel Martyn is not just an interesting anecdote, it is one of English football's most extraordinary scouting anomalies. A story that proved Holloway's fundamental belief about how the game should work. Holloway believes that talent is not exclusive to affluent academies with million-pound facilities and professional scouting networks. Talent can be found anywhere if a club possesses the community networks and the receptive staff to actually spot it. While vacationing in Cornwall, Bristol Rovers cleaner and tea lady Vi Harris spotted Martyn playing for non-league side St Blaise. Martyn wrote to Bristol Rovers, asking for a trial. It is remarkable that the club took this seriously. They could have dismissed it. They could have ignored a letter from a non-league goalkeeper recommended by their tea lady. But they gave him a chance. Martyn was quickly integrated into the first-team squad and eventually usurped regular goalkeeper Tim Carter, proving that Vi Harris's eye for talent was better than most professional scouts could ever claim. But Martyn's early days at Eastville were not a fairy tale. They were characterised by extreme financial hardship that tested his commitment to the game in ways most modern players could never imagine. He had so little money that he resorted to shooting local pigeons for food. This is not a metaphor. This is not exaggeration. Martyn actually hunted pigeons in the Bristol area to survive. He would go out with an air rifle, shoot pigeons, take them home, and cook them. That was his meal. That was how he stayed alive while trying to make it as a professional footballer. The image is shocking when you think about it. A goalkeeper with England potential, someone who would eventually earn 666 league appearances and play in the top flight, eating pigeons because he could not afford proper food. Senior Bristol Rovers players recognised his dire circumstances and took the unusual step of meeting with manager Jerry Francis to advocate for a pay rise on Martyn's behalf. This says something profound about the culture at the club. These were not wealthy superstars worrying about their own contracts. These were working professionals who saw a talented teammate struggling and decided to help. They went to the manager collectively and said Martyn needed more money. They used their voice, their standing, their influence to lift up someone who could not lift himself. And it worked. The investment paid off more handsomely than anyone could have imagined. Martyn developed into an elite goalkeeper, eventually earning 666 league appearances across his career and earning England caps. He became one of the most respected goalkeepers in English football, known for his shot stopping, his command of the box, and his consistency. He was sold to Crystal Palace in 1989 for a club record £1 million fee, a transfer that represented a life-changing sum for Bristol Rovers at the time. Holloway joked that the transfer finally allowed the local Bristol pigeon population to recover, a line that became famous and perfectly captured the absurdity and beauty of the story. Martyn's journey from a remote Cornish non-league club to the top flight of English football reinforces everything Holloway believes about football's democratic nature. The pre-digital era allowed for erratic, community-driven scouting in ways that are almost impossible today. A cleaner could change a player's life. A tea lady could spot a future England international. A handwritten letter could lead to a trial. Martin represents meritocracy over academy pedigree. He proves that raw, undiscovered talent existed in the deepest pockets of the football pyramid. For Holloway, this story is a reminder that football should never become an exclusive game controlled only by wealthy academies and corporate scouting networks. Anyone can make it if someone gives them a chance. Number 4. Mickey Barrett. This is the most emotional story on Holloway's list, and it is the one that shaped his approach to managing young players more than any other. In complete contrast to Stuart Taylor's long, stable career that stretched across 15 years and 546 games, the story of Mickey Barrett is one of immense, unfulfilled potential and profound tragedy that cuts to the heart of why Holloway treasures every moment in football. Barrett was a product of the local amateur leagues, a graduate of the community football system that defined Bristol in the 1970s and 1980s. He was a direct beneficiary of Harold Jarman's Monday night coaching sessions, those grassroots gatherings where uncontracted local players came to learn the game properly. Barrett soaked up everything Jarman taught him and developed into a fearless, highly skilled left winger who played with a freedom and joy that captivated everyone who watched him. In his final season, he had scored 13 goals, a remarkable return for a winger at that level, proving he was not just flashy, but genuinely productive. Holloway has frequently compared Barrett's playing style to that of a young Riyad Mahrez, and when you understand what that comparison means, you realize how special Barrett must have been. He had a remarkable ability to lift the ball over an opponent's foot and accelerate past defenders in an instant. This is one of the hardest skills in football to master. It requires perfect timing, perfect touch, perfect balance, and perfect confidence. Barrett had all of it naturally. He would receive the ball on the left wing, face up to a defender, and in one fluid motion, flick the ball over their outstretched foot and explode past them before they could react. Defenders hated playing against him because he made them look foolish. Fans loved watching him because he made the impossible look easy. He was an entertainer in the purest sense. He played with absolute fearlessness, never afraid to try something audacious, never worried about making a mistake. He brought joy to everyone who witnessed his brief career. The terraces would come alive when he got the ball. You could feel the anticipation, the excitement, the knowledge that something special might be about to happen. Barrett's performance was so compelling that major clubs, including Manchester United, had begun scouting him. His future looked limitless. Professional contract, top-flight football, international recognition. Everything was there waiting for him. Then, everything changed, in the cruelest way imaginable. During pre-season training in 1984, Barrett arrived severely weakened. His teammates noticed immediately. This was a young man who usually burst with energy, who could run for 90 minutes without tiring, who attacked every training session with enthusiasm. But now he looked drained. He looked ill. He received a diagnosis of terminal lung cancer. He passed away in August 1984 at the age of 24, just 6 weeks before the birth of his son, Liam. Imagine knowing you are dying and knowing you will never meet your child. 6 weeks. That is how close Barrett came to meeting his son. Number 3. Stuart Taylor. Stuart Taylor is the all-time appearance record holder for Bristol Rovers, with 546 league games between 1965 and 1980. He represents the absolute pinnacle of defensive composure and consistency, the gold standard against which Holloway would measure every professional he ever worked with for the rest of his life. As a young player breaking into the Bristol Rovers first team, Holloway carpooled to training with Taylor, who lived in the same Longwell Green neighbourhood. This was not a casual arrangement. This was a daily ritual that lasted for years. Every morning, Taylor would pick up young Holloway and drive him to training. Every evening, they would make the journey back together. This daily proximity allowed Holloway to observe his preparation and demeanour close at hand, in ways that would have been impossible from a distance. What Holloway saw changed his understanding of what a professional athlete should be. He famously described Taylor as immaculate in every facet of his life. The towering 6'5" defender would finish matches with barely a mark on his kit or a hair out of place. Think about what that means for a centre-back playing in the 1960s and 1970s. This was an era of muddy pitches, heavy leather footballs, and aggressive physical defending. Yet Taylor would walk off the pitch looking like he had just come from a photo shoot. His kit was clean, his hair was perfect, his boots were polished. This was not about vanity. This was about standards. Taylor did not rely on the aggressive, chaotic defending typical of his era. He was a precursor to the modern ball-playing centre-back, utilising positional intelligence, technical skill, and a calm temperament to neutralise forwards before they even became a threat. He read the game so well that he rarely needed to make desperate tackles or last-ditch clearances. He positioned himself perfectly, anticipated danger early, and dealt with problems before they escalated. Everything was controlled. Everything was measured. Everything was professional. Taylor never played as a substitute during his 15-year spell at the club. Not once. Think about that. In 15 years, he was never dropped, never injured badly enough to miss extended time, never deemed surplus to requirements. He established a remarkable record of 207 consecutive appearances between September 1968 and January 1973, a run that demonstrates not just ability, but incredible durability and resistance to injury. For Holloway, watching this every day, carpooling with this man every day, absorbing his habits and his mindset every day, created an understanding of professionalism that would last a lifetime. This became the baseline. This is what a pro looks like. Not someone who does the bare minimum, not someone who relies on natural talent alone, but someone who maximizes every aspect of their game through relentless dedication and unwavering standards. Taylor set the bar impossibly high, and Holloway spent the rest of his career looking for players who could match it. Number 2. Harold Jarman. While Chris Garland was the distant childhood idol who lit the dream, Harold Jarman was the direct mentor who shaped Holloway's tactical understanding and early career. Jarman was a Bristol Rovers stalwart with 452 league appearances and 127 goals. He was a highly skilled dual-sport athlete who also played professional cricket for Gloucestershire. Upon retiring from playing, Jarman took over as manager of Bristol Rovers in 1979, but his most enduring impact on Holloway came through his work conducting Monday night coaching sessions for uncontracted amateur local players who dreamed of making it as professionals. These sessions were not glamorous. They were not televised. They were not part of any fancy academy system. They were grassroots football at its absolute purest. Jarman would open up the Bristol Rovers training ground on Monday nights and invite local amateurs to come and learn. These sessions served as a vital developmental crucible, nurturing future professionals such as Holloway himself, Nicky Tanner, and Mickey Barrett. Holloway has consistently credited Jarman's football wisdom as a foundational source of his own coaching philosophy. Jarman taught positioning, movement, decision-making, tactical awareness, all the things that separate professional players from talented amateurs. He taught how to read the game, how to anticipate what was going to happen before it happened, how to make the pitch smaller when defending and bigger when attacking. These were not just physical sessions, they were educational sessions. They were masterclasses in football intelligence delivered to lads who otherwise would never have received that level of coaching. Jarman represented an era of community-driven player development. He was the club custodian, the experienced former player who remains within the local community to pass down technical knowledge to the next generation. Jarman did not do this for money or recognition. He did it because he believed in the community. He believed that local lads deserved a chance to learn the game properly. By celebrating Jarman, Holloway emphasises the historical importance of this figure. In modern football, academies are corporate entities with huge budgets and professional coaches. But back then, it was people like Jarman who kept the pipeline flowing. They were the architects of wisdom, building the next generation one Monday night at a time. Jarman taught Holloway how to think about football. He taught him how to read the game. He taught him how to coach. Without Jarman, Holloway might never have become the player or manager he eventually became. This is generational wisdom at its finest. This is the custodian model that Holloway wishes still existed in modern football. Not everything needs to be professionalized and monetized. Sometimes the best coaching comes from someone who simply cares about the community and wants to give back. Number 1. Chris Garland. This is where it all started. For a young Holloway growing up in Bristol, Chris Garland represented the ultimate aspirational figure. Despite Holloway's eventual lifelong alignment with Bristol Rovers, his father, Bill Holloway, routinely took him to Ashton Gate, the home of local rivals Bristol City, specifically to observe Garland's play. The experience of travelling in a Ford Transit van with local workers to watch Garland left an indelible mark on Holloway. He was captivated by the striker's style, physical poise, and local identity. Garland proved to the young spectator that a local Bristol lad could achieve national prominence. This early exposure established a core tenet of Holloway's philosophy. Football is fundamentally an organic pathway for local talent to assert itself. Garland's charisma and confidence on the pitch became the benchmark against which Holloway measured his own playing aspirations and, eventually, the potential of the players he managed. This was not about watching a distant superstar from another country. This was about watching someone from your own city, someone who grew up in the same streets, someone who talked the same way, succeed at the highest level. That meant everything to a young boy dreaming of his own football career. Garland was aesthetic charm and local pride rolled into one. He moved with style. He played with confidence. He carried himself like he belonged on that pitch, and he made everyone from Bristol believe they could belong there too. For Holloway, Garland was the childhood catalyst. He lit the dream. He showed that it was possible. Without Garland, Holloway might never have believed that a lad from Bristol could make it. But because of Garland, he knew it could be done. And that belief carried him through every challenge, every setback, every moment of doubt. Those Ford Transit van journeys became more than just trips to watch football. They became formative experiences that shaped Holloway's entire worldview. Sitting among local workers, hearing their pride when Garland scored, feeling the connection between player and community, understanding that football belonged to the people who lived and breathed it every day. That is what Garland represented. So there you have it, 7 players spanning decades, from childhood idols to teammates to players Holloway managed under financial chaos. David Beckham, the intrinsic drive that refused to quit even when money said he could. Paul Furlong, the vintage Rolls-Royce maintained and driven every single day. Nigel Martin, the democratic scouting anomaly discovered by a tea lady. Mickey Barrett, the fearless prodigy whose life was cut tragically short. Stuart Taylor, the immaculate professional who set the gold standard for consistency. Harold Jarman, the architect of wisdom who shaped the next generation in Monday night coaching sessions. And Chris Garland, the childhood catalyst who proved a local lad could make it. This is not a list of the 7 best players Holloway ever saw. This is a list of the 7 archetypes he wishes the world still celebrated. Each one represents something essential about the game Holloway loves. grit and grace, community and craft, joy and work ethic, standards and humility, local pride and global ambition. These are the custodians of a footballing philosophy that feels increasingly rare in the modern era. When you watch football today, you see transfer fees in the hundreds of millions. You see social media influencers who barely play. You see celebrity culture drowning out the actual game. But Holloway's list is a counter-story. It is about what lasts when the cameras leave. It is about the working-class winger who played with fearlessness, the goalkeeper who hunted pigeons to survive before earning a £1 million transfer, the mentor who gave up his Monday nights to coach local amateurs for free, the defender who finished 546 games with barely a mark on his kit, the striker who was polished and maintained like a luxury car so he could deliver every single day, the superstar who had every reason to stop but refused because the hunger never died, and the childhood idol who proved that local talent could achieve national prominence. But as long as people like Holloway keep telling these stories, as long as we remember the Chris Garlands and Harold Jarmans and Stuart Taylors and Mickey Barretts and Nigel Martins and Paul Furlongs and even the David Beckhams who prove that fame does not have to kill hunger, then there is hope. That is Holloway's GOAT. That is his list. And that is the lesson we all need to remember. If this story hit you the way it hit me, smash that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 7 surprised you most, and who do you think Holloway would add to this list if he made it today? Let me know. Until next time, this is Football Icons, and I will see you in the next one.